ability compared to some of the other tanks we were making. Now, the lovely engine note on this vehicle may be familiar to some. This is the Comet tank that had the Spitfire engine put in the back of it. What they did, they got the Merlin engine. Early in the war, we were trying to find different ways of supplying the Comet, supplying engines. The famous Merlin engine was using the Spitfire. Obviously, priority went to putting them in aeroplanes and bombers to get back at the Germans. So that was the obvious priority, but by 43 they adapted the Merlin engine. They called it the Meteor when they put it in a tank, and that's what you can hear rumbling around now. You can see on the back of the Comet, they realised it was going to make a lot of noise, don't even bother with a silencer. So you've got two fishtail exhausts at the rear there that sometimes will give a backflash that's quite stunning when you hear it and see it. But the Comet was based on components that were earlier used on the Cromwell tank. And the idea being, if we can keep compatibility apart, we don't have to completely retool up new factories to build new versions of vehicles. The Comet comes into service late in 1944, and that gun with the, it's basically a slightly shortened version of the 17-pounder gun. And that could fire discarding sabot ammunition, which means it would fire out the end of that barrel a small pot that contained a slug of tungsten. Now the Germans knew all about tungsten, they called it wolfram, they hadn't got supplies enough of it. Even though Sweden was giving them tungsten, or selling them tungsten, they couldn't get enough. And that 17-pounder, when it fired with discarding sabot ammunition, had better penetration than the 88mm on the famous Tiger 1 we'll see in a while. So it was a cracking bit of kit, the Comet tank, but doesn't see much service because it only gets there right at the end of the war. Now, probably, arguably, for some countries, the best tank of all time, this is the famous Centuirion tank that was designed in Britain in the war, doesn't see action, it's rushed to Germany. Centuirion had that same gun on, the 17-pounder, then a 20-pounder, and then this version, the 105mm gun, the L7. And that was a cracking anti-tank gun, probably the best in the world, which is why everyone came to Britain to buy it. In the back, they put that same Meteor engine, and why people like the Centurion, it's got that perfect combination of good firepower, good mobility, and good levels of armour protection. Now, one of the issues with the Centurion, they finally did away with a directive that it had to have a flat glacé plate to fit the Beezer machine gun. If you look at our Comet in the middle there, even though we knew all about sloped armour and the fact that not only does it encourage ricochets, but it thickens the amount of metal an incoming round from another tank has got to penetrate without adding weight to the tank. The fact it could do all that, we still insisted in Britain that it had a vertical plate to fit the famous Beezer machine gun mount. With the Centurion, they just did away with that. So we've got that nice sloped glacé plate in front of the driver's position, and again, for the first time now, we're getting an offset driver's position, and we do away with the co-driver. 3 crew members up in the turret. We've got commander, gunner, loader, and a tank that could be upgraded. 13 marks of Centurion went into service. Again, we did all sorts of different variations, bridge layers, a Bath beach armoured recovery vehicle, you can see, again we have in the collection here in the Vehicle Conservation Centre. Lots of different versions, sold all around the world, 13 countries.